Welcome everybody to this virtual field tour on behalf of Ohio soybean farmers, 24,000 soybean farmers around the state, the Ohio Soybean Council, and our education program, Grow Next Gen. We want to thank you for participating today. We have one of our former board members from Northwest Ohio joining us today to talk about what's involved in planting soybeans and some other interesting subjects about soybeans. He is Nathan Eckel. And with that, before I turn it over to Nathan, if you have any questions, please make sure to put them in the Q&A box, and we will try as hard as we can to answer all your questions during the trip. And with that, I'm turning it over to Nathan. Take it away.
Hey guys, I know it's kind of hard to see. The sun's just right now. We're here in the sunshine and finally here in Wood County. I am in Perrysburg, Ohio, just south of Toledo, about 20 miles from Lake Erie, just south and west of Lake Erie. Dan showed you there kind of where I'm located in reference to the lake.
Right.
And where we're at used to be the Great Black Swamp, and so right now we're experiencing some swamp-like weather. We've gotten a lot of rain. I think I just saw something on the news the other day that since the beginning of the year, it has rained or snowed 47% of the days this year since Jan 1. And to give you an idea, Seattle, Washington, which we kind of consider as a rainy state or a rainy city within the United States, has only had 44% of their days as wet weather. So just to kind of give you an idea what ground conditions are like here. If I can get this flipped around, you'll see down here we've got some water. I don't know if you can hear it or not, but you can see as I'm walking around, it's awfully muddy out in here. So these are some of the conditions that we're dealing with right now. Hence the reason why we're not in the field today, which we kind of hoped we would be in the field, but we're not there right now. So you guys are going to get the opportunity I'm going to show you one of my planters, one of my tractors with the auto steer in it. And as I'm walking back into the shop, I'll give you a little brief overview back into myself. So I graduated from Ohio State in 2005, came back to the family farm, and now farm with my two brothers. Myself, we farm roughly 2,000 acres of corn, soybeans, wheat, and then we also have some forages for our livestock operation. Right there is, that's my homestead. That barn is roughly about 2.5 football fields long. It still doesn't hold all of my equipment, but that's what we've got there. And then you'll see the little part kind of jetted off to the side that kind of L's off it. That is my farm shop where I do a lot of my work on my equipment, and that's what we're walking into here now. This is my family, myself, my wife Katie, who is a 2nd grade teacher in North Baltimore, and then my two boys, my oldest being Kanan, who is 5 and is in preschool. The youngest is Blaine, and he is 3 and wants to go to preschool very soon. So yeah, he's got a great family. The boys are out here with me in the shop as much as they can be, and do a lot of work out here with me, help get dirty, and all those kinds of things. So behind me here, we'll get into the nitty-gritty of what I do. And right now, we're just working on planters here in the shop, getting everything ready for whenever we are able to start planting. So as you can see behind me here, I've got one of my planters. This is my 12-row planter. I also have a 24-row planter. Each of these can plant either beans or corn. I also have what I call an air seeder, and that air seeder can plant wheat or beans. So I'm going to show you how this planter would plant beans today. That's how we're going to have it set up as we start in here. So if we look at the meter on this planter, this is what's going to control the seed going into the ground. So this is the row unit. There's disc blades in here that open the seed trench up. Let me see if I can get my finger in here. So up here, this is going to loosen the soil up. Those disc blades there are going to open a seed trench kind of in a V pattern. That's what's going to drop the seed. There's a seed tube in between here, and it drops the seed down into the soil. And this big black wheel here is going to compress the seed trench back closed again and firm the sidewalls. And then as we go back here, these other black wheels in the back are going to fully close the seed trench so that we get good soil to seed contact and protect the seed from weather. Now moving on down here to the seed box, this is what stores the seed inside of it, this yellow part here. And then we've got the seed meter and the seed disc. So if I pull this off of here, the way this works is there's a seed will drop into every one of these holes that's in here that you'll see. And then there is and the way this works is like a vacuum cleaner. So if you have a vacuum at home, if you've ever been playing around with your mom or dad's vacuum, you go to your brother or your sister or your mom and put it on their leg, it basically vacuums their clothes up. And that's the idea behind this seed disc is there's a little tiny hole behind here, and it holds the seed in with a vacuum until it comes around, and there's this little wiper right here. And once that seed disc hits this wiper, it loses vacuum, and then it will drop it down in this seed tube here and out of the meter. Now, just to give you a little idea of how fast these meters are working. As this planter's going down through the field, this one row unit right here, when I'm planting soybeans, is dropping roughly 80 seeds per second. So on a 24 row corn planter, or on a bean planter, I should say, we're dropping 80 seeds per second per row. So roughly every row is dropping 3 cents worth of seed per second. And so then after if you figure that a little bit further, 3 cents per row times 24, 72 cents per row per second, or 72 cents for the entire planter, I'm sorry, per second is how much money I am spending as I'm going down through the field. So just to give you a little bit idea of how fast we're planting, I plant at 4.5 miles an hour. And that's about how fast these things are dropping in the ground.
So we'll show a little video here of what planting looks like if Nathan were in the field, which he would prefer to be, by the way. So this is a farmer filling up the planter with seed. You'll notice that the seed is different colors. Nathan, you might address that real quickly.
Yeah, so you'll see that seed's it's got a little reddish tint to it. That's going to be the seed treatment on there. So we put seed treatment. There's different insects and pests that are in our soils that can hurt our seed. So that's why we coat the seed in that. It can either be green or red, a bunch of different colors. It depends on the manufacturer. But that's where we're trying to protect our seed and give our seed the best chance we can to grow a viable plant.
So here is an animation showing how the planter worked, exactly what Nathan was showing you previously.
So as you can see, that seed meter is going around in a circle. You can see each one of those each one of those holes has a seed in it, and it's dropping it down into the seed tube. And like I said, it's dropping 80 of those per second as the planter's going down through the field. 80 per second per row. So I want you guys to figure out how fast you guys can clap per second. How many claps can you get in per second? I don't think you can beat the corn planter. There you see it going down into the ground. There's a firmer wheel behind there pushing that seed down in the ground and closing the soil back up to encapsulate that plant in the soil. Just as you guys would plant, any seeds in your garden at home. That's what this planter is doing mechanically.
Okay, I have a question from someone. How many different types or colors of soybeans are there?
There's a number of different types of soybean colors. I mean, the main, when you're talking about seed treatments, there's probably only really 2 or 3. It's either green or red primarily, depending on what your seed treatment is. That's usually, I mean, your soybeans though themselves have those are the yellowish tan color with different color hilums, and the hilum is like the little snake's eye, the middle of the snake eye, if you will. And that's kind of how they separate different varieties, is by the color of seed, and then by the color of what they call their hilum, which is that little snake eye part, or the pupil of the snake eye. If you look at a snake, the little black part that kind of looks sideways, that kind of the same way the soybean looks, and that's how you guys can determine different varieties of soybeans, different types of soybeans, is usually by those couple of things. You're
Okay. You want
going down through the field.
Yeah.
So as it's going down through the field, those row units are going up and down, adjusting to different soil conditions. Here he's fueling it up. But so I think we're ready to, I'm in the tractor. If you want to click back over to me, Dan, and I'll kind of show you what I've got going on in here. We're just in my driveway in my planting tractor. So as you can see, I've got a number of different monitors in here. Over here, I've got, this is my rate monitor, which is telling me how many seeds my planter's planting per acre, is usually how this one works. And then this one here is for all of my guidance. It also can control my seed population on my air seeder. But if we go in here, I can click to my other screen. So you'll see on this screen, I've already set up what I call an AB line. And I just have set it up down my driveway for just to show you guys how all of this works. So it's automatically set a line, and it's set on 30 feet apart. And really all I have to do, I still have to turn the tractor on the end of the field. But once I'm going down through the field, I just press a button and the tractor will drive itself, and I'll show you guys how that works here in a second. So we'll see if we can get a good shot of this. So as I'm going to make sure I have my auto steer turned on. And I do. So I'm just offline here, and it tells me how many inches, and I know this is backwards for you guys, but it tells me the little red bar to the side, and then you can kind of see 4 or 5 inches that I'm off my center line. So what I'll do is, as I'm driving down through the field, kind of hope I can get this in the shot, but as I'm driving through the field and I'm offline, I reach through here and just touch this, and my tractor automatically finds that line that I needed. If you can see this, I'm not doing anything. It's steering itself as I'm going down my driveway, which is really neat. I can keep track better of what my planter's doing, how the planter's planting, making sure that every seed's going in the ground just right. I'll turn this around here now. But as you can see, these lines on here tell me where I've been. And if I was planting, it would draw a map. There would be a colored in portion in here. It would tell me where I've planted already and where I need to go. So as I said before, I get partway around the turn and I hit my button, and it's automatically going to find that line that my planter and tractor need to be on.
Nathan, why don't we go to the life cycle of the soybean plant real quick?
Okay. Yeah.
So once you get the seed in the ground, why don't we talk about what it goes through?
Yeah, so this is just after germination. That seed's just poked out of the ground. We've got a good root system on it. And actually those two halves that you'll see that are big and thick on the top of that little seedling, those are actually the two outer shells of that soybean. And that's kind of your first node right at the base of that is what we call that, your first node. Here you'll see I think we've got two nodes on there just after germination. You'll see those yellowing of the leaves on the bottom. That's because the plant's really the seedling's really putting everything it has into the plant right now. And here we have flowering, and kind of a neat portion of this right here when we talk about flowering. So a soybean plant actually produces nectar. So on our farm, we have a gentleman that brings beehives out, sets them around on the edges of our fields, and he actually makes what we call soybean honey, and he makes that off the nectar that these soybeans will produce. And the bees don't actually get the nectar from the flower itself. They actually get it from down in there at the base of the nodes, where you see you can kind of see out of each one of these flowers will produce a pod. So you can see the pods now.
What time of the year does it flower, Nathan? How far into the process?
Oh, I would say probably about halfway through the process.
Okay.
Because you've got the flowering and then the growing of the pods. So roughly, if we say we have these beans planted, well, usually we would have them planted by Memorial Day. So towards the end of May, usually by June, July, when it's hot and dry, that's when we're really in the flowering stages.
Okay. And it sets pods, starts setting pods when?
Yeah, it starts setting pods probably a week or two after the flowering. So those flowers, each one of those flowers will turn into a pod. And the plant, the great thing about this soybean plant is as it's producing pods and it's in what we call its reproductive stage, growing those seeds, it's continuing to grow taller and taller. So it's continually adding nodes onto that plant and continually trying to reproduce. And here at the end, you'll see this is a ripe soybean field. All the leaves have fallen off. All that is left now is the stem and the soybeans itself that go into the combine. And here's kind of if Dan can start that, it'll start out at a seedling. Yep, you'll see the seedling and the root system, and it just keeps branching out. And each one of those little dots are nodes on there. And you'll see the pods begin to grow, and then you'll see that starting to lose its color. So as it starts to ripen, it means that it's gotten to the end of its reproductive cycle. And when it gets to the end of its reproductive cycle, that's when the chlorophyll, if you guys learn about plant biology at all, it's got chlorophyll, which is what gives it its green tint to the plant. And that's what creates photosynthesis, which is what allows the plant to continue to grow and survive and reproduce. So as that plant reaches its full maturity, that's when that plant start losing its chlorophyll out of the plant, or out of the leaves and out of the stems, and we'll begin what we call ripening process. And then that's when we bring our combine in and harvest the beans, which brings us to some of the uses. There's a combine much like the one we have.
Yeah, Nathan, I've got some questions here. We're going to run through them. I got a question from Ms. Atkins' class, which fits right into where you were headed. And her students, what are soybeans used for? Which goes along with another question, says, why are soybeans important? So we'll let you address that now.
Yeah, so soybeans have a number of uses. So if you guys read the newspaper, read your books in your classroom, a lot of that ink is used from soybean oil. So soybeans have an oil inside of them. We take once our beans are harvested, we can take them to what we call a crusher, and they will crush those beans and crush the oil out of those soybeans, and then use it for ink. They can also use it for plastics, much like in my planter here. These boxes on this planter is all plastic and can be made from soybeans. And we also use it for animal feed as well. So a lot of hogs, as you'll see right there, use soybean meal. Dairy cattle use soybean meal. Chickens, obviously. Just a number of different animals can utilize that soybean meal. We also use it, I talked about oil before. All of our tractors here on our farm run a biodiesel blend. So most of the biodiesel is all derived from soybean oil, and it's blended in with diesel. We can make paints out of it to paint our equipment, paint our houses, hand sanitizers, things of that nature. So just a number of different uses. Kind of the coolest thing I think soybeans are used for is tuna fish feed. Out in the Pacific Ocean, we actually feed tuna fish a soybean meal diet, which is really neat. So Dan just flipped through a bunch of those different uses for soybeans. There any other questions that you guys have on uses of soybeans or anything like that?
Well, I have a bunch of questions. I'll try to go through them as quickly as I can. How long does it take you to plant a field? Or in other words, how many acres can you plant in a day?
So when I'm planting soybeans, I can roughly plant about 200 acres a day. And it all depends on the ground conditions and what we're doing at the time. But roughly 200 to 250 acres a day. We may try to push that envelope a little more here as we get later in the planting season. With 3 brothers, we can run these planters around the clock. Each of us take an 8-hour shift, and really the tractor never stops. So we can continually plant around the clock. We've done it for up to 4 days straight, and then we kind of need a break. But yeah, roughly 200 acres a day in a really good day is about.
Okay, and how many seeds is that approximately?
Oh man, so we went through the math here. You're going to test my math skills. I think I had a cheat sheet down here.
Well, how many bags would that be, and how many seeds in a bag? Approximately.
So there's roughly about 140,000 seeds in a bag. Is what we've got in each bag. And if I'm planting 200 acres in a day, you're going to make me do the math, Tom.
How many bags to the acre?
Right at about 1 bag to the acre. So roughly 200, what we call units, or 200 bags a day is what we're putting in. Some of those can be paper bags. A lot of it now is just in bulk, and we're using You saw the video earlier of the gentleman using that tube to fill the planter out of a wagon. That's a lot of what we do. We used to carry bags, and now we're using these bulk systems now, which is a lot easier on our backs.
Okay.
Any other questions, Tom?
Yeah, how long does it take for the plant from the time you plant it till you harvest it? How many days is that on average?
So on average, usually we're planting in the middle of May, and then we most of the time start harvest somewhere in October, the end of September, beginning of October. So uh, roughly about 4 months, we can go from a seedling to a harvestable crop, which is kind of unbelievable that a plant can grow that fast.
Another question is, how tall does the plant get?
Um, it all depends on variety. Most of the soybeans that I'm growing are about waist high, so roughly 36 to 42 inches tall. And there's usually what I would like to see is between 80 and 100 pods per plant. And each one of those pods is going to have between 3 and 4 beans per pod.
Okay. Another group wants to know, where did you get all of your farm machinery?
So I'm a fifth generation farmer. So our family's farmed here in Perrysburg. Would have been since my great grandfather. Um, and so we've always had farm equipment, but every year, just like your mom and dad would buy new cars, we are constantly updating equipment that we have. I think my biggest purchase of a piece of farm equipment would be my combine, and my combine roughly cost about $400,000.
And you use it for how long during harvest?
Uh, Roughly, I mean, I usually put somewhere in the neighborhood of about 300 hours a year on
Yeah, very good. Somebody else wants to know, totally different question. How long did it take to build your barn?
that. Believe it or not, they can build these barns in about 7 days. These guys really know how to build these barns. So.
Uh, Couple of other questions. What pests eat the seeds? Or what
So actually,
do you have to deal with?
yeah, so that's a great question. Right now here in my area, fortunately, we don't have a lot of pest pressure. Our biggest pest right now are stink bugs. We had if you guys have ever seen a stink bug, I don't think Dan has a picture of one of those. Uh, but the stink bugs actually have a little needle on the end of their mouth, and they burrow in that pod on that plant, and they try to suck the juices out of that soybean seed. Because those beans, when they're in the pods before they get ripe, they actually look like a lima bean, and there's a lot of juices in there. So that's what those stink bugs are trying to get, are the juices in that soybean plant or that soybean seed. And what that does is it opens up to bacteria, and it'll actually turn those soybeans black. Um, yeah, there you'll see one of those stink bugs on a plant right there.
Some of you may actually get stink bugs in your house. In the wintertime, they like to invade your house because they like to be warm and overwinter, and then they'll go back outside again.
That's a great question, Tom.
Yeah, really good question. Uh, what kind of soil is best for soybeans?
Well, any kind of soil you can grow soybeans in. It's more of a weather pattern. Soybeans really like our environment here in Northwest Ohio. You can grow soybeans just about anywhere. I mean, they grow soybeans clear up into North Dakota now. But right here in Ohio, in Northwest Ohio, we grow some of the best soybeans in the world, protein content wise, for feed uses and things like that. Some of the best quality soybeans actually come from right here. So our clay soils with we have limestone bedrock underneath, and our climate right here where we're at really is conducive for growing soybeans.
Very good. Why do you like farming soybeans, and what's the best thing about being a farmer?
So soybeans are fun to grow. I enjoy planting soybeans. Um, I really enjoy being a farmer. Like I said, our family's farmed my entire life. I grew up. I started driving a tractor when I was about 6 years old. As soon as I could reach the pedals on the tractor, Grandpa was having me drive it, and Dad was having me drive it. And it's just in my blood. And it's I've done a number of things since I graduated college, and I always come back to farming. So it's just a passion of mine. I love putting seeds in the ground, see them grow, and be able to harvest a crop that I know produces a number of things for a lot of people in the world.
Why do you need to plant in straight lines, Nathan?
Well, there's an old adage. Grandpa said that you could always get more plants to grow in a crooked row than a straight row. But it's all about efficiency. And when you can plant in straight lines, you don't push over as many plants, and you can better till the soil. You can better keep pests and weeds out that way, and it runs a lot more efficient that way. All of our equipment does.
Do we have a few more minutes, Dan? Because we have a few more questions. I'm saving the best one for last. Not the best one, but a very interesting one for this time,
Okay.
the present time. But somebody wanted to know, how do soybeans get liquefied for products like soy sauce? I may give this one a stab if I can.
Okay.
Soybeans are processed, as Nathan mentioned earlier. The two major components are soybean oil and soybean meal or protein. I believe it's actually the meal, the protein, that is made into soy sauce. It's fermented, and some activities take place and make soy sauce. The soybean oil, other than it's used for biodiesel and other things, soybean oil is primarily used as vegetable oil for use in foods. So that gives you a quick answer to that question. Let me see what other questions we have. This one is the big one. There are two different ones, but they're related. One, on average, what is a soybean farmer's yearly salary? And the other one is, how much money do farmers make in a year?
Well, that all varies depending on number of acres that you farm, and what crops are in your rotation. So like I said before, our operation's diversified with corn, soybeans, wheat. We do have some alfalfa and different forages for our cattle operation, which we do have a cattle operation. We have about 700 head of cattle on feed all the time that we're feeding constantly. So just to give you a ballpark idea, roughly, you guys can do the math in your classroom. On average, these soybeans will produce about 60 bushel per acre. And right now, with the tariffs that are going on in China, our beans are worth about $8 a bushel right now. So that just gives you kind of an idea of what the cost or what the price per acre or what we can make per acre. And usually on average, I have about 1,100 to 1,300 acres of beans I plant every year.
But some years it's easier to make money than others, right?
That is correct. That is correct. So every farmer is a little different. We all, along with the cattle operation, both of my brothers sell seed. So we do have some other off-farm jobs that we do to make money on all of our wives are teachers in my family.
Do you have any fertilizer that you can show, or do you not have any in the shop?
I do not have any fertilizer in the shop. So with our livestock operation, a lot of the fertilizer that we use is actually cattle manure. So we use straw from our wheat to bed our cattle down. And then obviously the cattle eat and defecate in the straw, and we use that as nutrients for our plants. So I told you we farm about 2,000 acres, and out of those 2,000 acres, roughly about 500 to 700 acres we cover with manure on about a 3-year rotation. So a lot of what we farm, we don't have to buy any fertilizer for at all. So a lot of it is just manure is what we use.
Okay, let's see. I got more questions if people are interested. Who helps you on the farm? So how many people actually operate your farm?
Yeah, so it's myself and my 2 brothers, and that's who's doing all the work. We do hire a few young high school kids to bale straw and do some other odd and end stuff, but primarily it's my 2 brothers and myself are doing all the work on the cattle operation and in our grain farm.
Okay. Another question, can you make milk from soybeans? Well, you can make soy milk out of the soybean meal, so.
Yes, you can.
You can. Although some dairy farmers would like
argue otherwise.
Called milk, so.
Yes.
Anyhow. But soy milk is very popular. So can you make a tarp out of soybeans? That's a good question. I'm guessing since soybeans can be used to make plastics and that sort of thing, that you could make a tarp that was made from soybeans. So
yes,
that's an excellent question. How long does it take to fill the planter boxes with seed?
Usually it takes me roughly about 15 to 20 minutes to fill the entire planter. It goes fairly quick, depending on how much help I have there to get everything running, but usually about 15 to 20 minutes.
Okay. And do all of the seeds you plant turn into a soybean plant? That's
a good question. We usually figure on about a 5% or 95% germination rate with our soybeans. So 5% of what we plant is not going to grow, is what we always figure. So for instance, I'm roughly planting 140,000 seeds per acre, and take 5% off of that, and that's what I'm counting on for my final stand.
And if you have an idea, how many soybeans do you get from a single plant, approximately, would you say?
So say you had 80 pods on a plant times 4, that would be, what would that be?
320.
320 soybeans, yes. 320 soybeans per plant.
Very good. Okay, I think that covers most of the questions. Oh, okay, here's one. How do you use sprays, pesticides, or others on your crops?
So we have a sprayer, and I'll walk out here to my barn and show you guys we have a large, what I call self-propelled sprayer that we use to apply all of our chemicals and insecticides. It sits about, I can just about walk underneath of it. It has a clearance of about 5 feet in the air, and the boom is 80 feet wide. It holds 750 gallon of liquid. It also has a controller on it that dictates how many gallons per acre we're putting on, and it's a vital tool to our operation. Let me see if I can. Dan, I don't know if you want to turn over to my camera here. I can kind of show you. Okay, so if you look at this, the big yellow thing here, this is my sprayer that I have. The booms are 80 feet wide. It also has, if you look up top here, it also has the same guidance system that my planting tractor has on it. and it travels through the field at about 12 to 14 miles an hour. So we can cover a lot of acres in a day. While I'm out here, this is my air seeder. Plants a row every 7.5 inches. That's what we use here. I'll just pan around my barn. Here's one of my big tractors, little tractor, couple trucks, and another tractor and a piece of tillage equipment in here. So.
Okay. I've got some more questions. We'll keep going for a little bit. Where do you get your seed?
So both of my brothers sell seed. So we use a company called Pioneer Seeds. And then we also use a company called Stewart Seeds that we get all of our seed from.
Have you ever considered being anything other than a farmer?
Not really. I've driven truck for a while. I've sold seed for a while. But I always, like I said, everything I do has to do with agriculture. Whether I sit obviously on the board of directors for the Ohio Soybean Council. So everything that I do, everything that I've done in some way, shape, or form always ties back into agriculture. I may not be farming all the time, but it always has something to do with agriculture.
Who buys your soybeans once you've harvested them?
So we sell them either to the Andersons, there's a couple different locations, but the ones that we primarily use are up on the Maumee River, up by Toledo, or Lucky Farmers Cooperative is what we use. And I'm a member of a cooperative, and we sell our seed through there. And then through that, go to an end user, either, like I said before, with the soybeans is a crusher, or our wheat goes to a milling company down in Willard, Ohio that make all your goldfish crackers.
Okay, very good. Okay, animals on your farm. I think you mentioned you do have a cattle operation, right?
Yes, correct. Yeah, we've got roughly 700 head of cattle on feed all the time. We're constantly feeding cattle all the time, hauling manure, sorting cattle, loading cattle. It happens all the time.
Okay. Do you have any pets on the farm?
Yes, I have 2 dogs. I have a red fox lab puppy that's about 20 months old. And then we also have a little husky dog, Sheltie Husky mix, and she's about 30 pounds.
I have another question here. Do any animals try to eat the soybeans while they are growing?
No, all of our livestock are in barns, in pens.
What about deer or other assorted?
Yes, we do have. There's not so much in soybeans, but in corn, we do have some issues with some rodents, groundhogs, woodchucks, muskrats. Those will all eat soybeans from the edges of their ditches. Everything is drained here, like I said earlier, in the black swamp. So we have a lot of rodents that live in the edge of the ditches, and they'll come up to eat the soybean plants when they need something to eat. And they can really cause a lot of damage, actually.
Yeah, I want to thank all of the classrooms that participated today. On behalf of Ohio soybean farmers and Grow Next Gen, we really appreciate your involvement, and we really, really appreciate all the wonderful questions you asked of Nathan today. I think it shows how involved your classes were. So thank you very much. I hope you have a good rest of the day, and we'll see you next October when we do this for harvesting. Thanks again.